The Atlanta courthouse hummed with tension, its oak-paneled walls absorbing the murmurs of the crowded gallery. Amara Jenkins stood at the defendant's table, her heart pounding beneath her modest blazer. A black woman in her early 30s, with deep brown eyes and tightly coiled hair pulled into a neat bun, Amara exuded quiet strength. She was no stranger to scrutiny, but today the stakes were higher. She faced a wrongful eviction lawsuit that threatened to strip away her family's home. Across the room, Victor Grayson, a slick white lawyer in a tailored navy suit, adjusted his cufflinks with a smirk. Known for his ruthless tactics and silver tongue, Victor represented the powerful real estate firm suing Amara. His reputation preceded him. He'd never lost a case, and he relished dismantling opponents in court. Today, he saw Amara as just another easy win, a tenant who dared to challenge his client's might. The judge, a stern older woman named Helen Carver, banged her gavel, silencing the room. Amara took a deep breath, her hands clasped tightly. She wasn't a lawyer, but she'd spent months preparing, poring over legal documents in her cramped apartment. This wasn't just about her home. It was about justice, about proving she belonged. As the trial began, she felt Victor's mocking gaze, and she knew this fight would test her like never before. Victor stood, his voice smooth as he addressed the court. "Your Honor, this case is simple. Ms. Jenkins failed to pay rent, violating her lease. My client, Sterling Properties, has every right to reclaim their asset." His tone was confident, almost bored, as if Amara's life was a minor inconvenience. He glanced at her, his smirk widening, and added, "Some people just don't understand the rules of business." Amara's jaw tightened, but she kept her composure. She'd expected this. Victor's reputation for belittling opponents was well known. She stood, her voice steady despite the knot in her stomach. "Your Honor, I've paid every cent of rent on time. Sterling Properties raised the rent illegally, ignoring city regulations. I'm here to prove it." Her words were clear, but Victor chuckled softly, loud enough for the gallery to hear. Judge Carver's eyes flicked between them, her expression unreadable. "Proceed, Ms. Jenkins," she said. Amara felt the weight of the room's attention, the whispers of doubt from the gallery. She wasn't a lawyer, just a single mother fighting for her son's future. But she'd come prepared, and Victor's arrogance only fueled her resolve. This was her moment, to stand tall. Victor launched into his case, presenting documents with a theatrical flourish. "These are Ms. Jenkins's lease agreements, clearly outlining her obligations," he said, holding up papers with highlighted clauses. "She signed them, yet she claims ignorance of the terms." Typical. The word dripped with condescension, and a few spectators snickered, emboldened by his tone. Amara felt the sting, but she focused on her notes, her fingers tracing the evidence she'd gathered. City ordinances, email exchanges with Sterling Properties, proof of her payments. She stood again, her voice firm. "Your Honor, the lease was altered without my consent. Sterling sent a new contract with a 30% rent increase, violating Atlanta's housing laws." She held up a printed email, her hands steady despite Victor's eye roll. "Your Honor," Victor interjected, his voice laced with mockery, "Ms. Jenkins seems to think she's a lawyer now. These documents are standard, and her failure to comply isn't our fault." He leaned toward her, his smile sharp. "Maybe stick to what you know, Ms. Jenkins." The gallery murmured, and Amara's heart raced. She met his gaze, her eyes blazing. He'd underestimated her, and that was his first mistake. The courtroom fell silent as Amara stepped forward, her voice cutting through the tension like a blade. "Your Honor, I'm not a lawyer, but I know my rights, and I know the truth." The room froze, every eye on her. Victor's smirk faltered, caught off guard by her confidence. Sterling Properties forged my signature on a revised lease to justify their illegal eviction. I have proof. She held up a folder, her hands steady as she passed it to the bailiff. Inside were notarized copies of her original lease, bank statements showing timely payments, and a forensic analysis of the forged signature. The gallery gasped, and Victor's face paled, his confident facade cracking. Judge Carver leaned forward, her eyes narrowing as she took the documents. "This is a serious accusation, Ms. Jenkins," the judge said, her tone measured. "If true, it changes everything." Amara nodded, her heart pounding. She'd spent sleepless nights building her case, driven by the thought of her son, Caleb, losing the only home he'd known. Victor's mockery had lit a fire in her, and now she was ready to burn his lies to the ground. Amara's mind flashed to the past year as she waited for the judge to review her evidence. She'd moved to Atlanta with Caleb after escaping an abusive relationship, determined to start fresh. The small apartment in Sterling's complex was their sanctuary, a place where Caleb could sleep without fear. But 6 months ago, Sterling had started raising rents, targeting low-income tenants like Amara, hoping they'd leave without a fight. She'd fought back, researching laws, contacting housing advocates, and teaching herself legal basics. Caleb, only 8, had watched her study, his wide eyes full of pride. "You're like a superhero, Mom," he'd said, and those words had kept her going. Now, standing in court, she felt his faith in her, a quiet strength against Victor's taunts. Victor, meanwhile, shuffled his papers, his confidence shaken. He'd underestimated Amara, assuming her lack of a law degree meant she was no threat. But her first sentence had shifted the room's energy, and he sensed the tide turning. He leaned toward his assistant, whispering furiously, scrambling to regain control. Amara watched, her resolve hardening. This wasn't just her fight, it was for every tenant Sterling had tried to crush. Victor stood, his voice louder now, tinged with desperation. "Your Honor, this is absurd. Ms. Jenkins' so-called evidence is a fabrication, a desperate attempt to dodge her responsibilities." He waved a hand dismissively, but his eyes darted to the folder in the judge's hands. "Sterling Properties operates within the law. Her claims are baseless." Amara didn't flinch. "Your Honor, I have emails from Sterling's management admitting they raised rents to encourage turnover. They targeted tenants like me because we don't fit their gentrified vision." She passed another document to the bailiff, her voice steady. "These are internal memos, obtained legally through a public records request." The gallery buzzed, and Victor's face reddened, his composure unraveling. Judge Carver raised an eyebrow, flipping through the memos. "Mr. Grayson, these are serious allegations. Do you have a response?" Victor stammered, his usual eloquence faltering. We'll need time to review, Your Honor." Amara felt a spark of hope. She'd landed a blow, but the fight was far from over. Victor wasn't the type to go down quietly. During a brief recess, Amara stood in the courthouse hallway, sipping water to calm her nerves. The weight of the trial pressed on her, but she felt alive. Fueled by the fire, Victor's mockery had ignited. She glanced at her phone, a photo of Caleb smiling on the lock screen. This was for him, for their future. She couldn't let him down. Victor approached, his face a mask of false concern. "Ms. Jenkins, you're in over your head," he said, his voice low, almost a hiss. "Drop this now. And Sterling Lee system. Sterling might make a deal." His words were a calculated jab meant to intimidate, but Amara's eyes blazed with defiance. "I'm not dropping anything, Mr. Grayson. You're used to bullying people into submission, but I'm not one of them." Her voice was low, steady, a quiet storm brewing. The hallway seemed to shrink around them, the air thick with tension. Victor's smile was tight, predatory. "You're making a mistake, Ms. Jenkins. People like you don't win against people like me." He leaned closer, his voice a whisper. "I can make this very hard for you." Amara held his gaze, unflinching. "Try me," she said, her words a challenge that echoed in the silence. As Victor walked away, his smirk faltering, Amara's heart raced. His threat lingered, but it only sharpened her resolve. She wasn't just fighting for her home. She was fighting for every person he'd dismissed, every voice he'd silenced. Back in the courtroom, she straightened her shoulders, ready for the next round. Victor had no idea who he was up against. Back in session, Amara presented more evidence, her voice growing stronger with each word. "Your Honor, I have bank statements proving I paid the original rent amount, not the inflated one Sterling claimed." She handed over neatly organized records, her months of sleepless nights paying off. The gallery murmured, their doubt shifting to intrigue. Victor scrambled, his polished demeanor fraying. "This is irrelevant, Your Honor. The lease terms are clear. Ms. Jenkins breached them." But his voice lacked its earlier confidence, and Judge Carver's sharp glance silenced him. She studied Amara's documents, her expression unreadable. "These records appear consistent, Mr. Grayson. Can you verify Sterling's claims?" Victor's assistant handed him a file, and he fumbled through it, his hands unsteady. We'll provide counter-evidence shortly, Your Honor." Amara caught the flicker of panic in his eyes and knew she'd struck a nerve. The courtroom felt electric, every spectator leaning forward, sensing the shift. Amara wasn't just holding her own, she was turning the tables. As Victor stalled, a new figure entered the courtroom. A young white woman in a sharp blazer, her auburn hair pulled back. She approached Amara's table, whispering, "I'm Lauren Tate, from the Atlanta Housing Coalition. I saw your case online and got your public records. Can I help?" Amara's eyes widened, hope surging. She nodded, and Lauren took a seat beside her. Lauren stood, addressing the court with confidence. "Your Honor, I've reviewed Ms. Jenkins' evidence and can confirm its authenticity. Sterling Properties has a history of predatory practices, targeting marginalized tenants." She presented a report detailing similar cases, her voice clear and authoritative. The gallery erupted in whispers, and Victor's face went ashen. Judge Carver's eyes narrowed, her gavel poised. "This is highly irregular, Ms. Tate, but I'll allow it. Proceed." Amara felt a rush of gratitude. Her solitary fight suddenly bolstered. Lauren's presence was a game-changer, but Victor's glare promised retaliation. Amara braced herself. This was about to get uglier. Victor rose, his voice sharp with renewed vigor. "Your Honor, this is a stunt. Ms. Tate has no standing here, and Ms. Jenkins's claims are a distraction from her failure to pay." He brandished a new document, his smirk returning. "This is the revised lease, signed by Ms. Jenkins. It clearly states the new rent amount." Amara's heart sank as Victor passed the document to the judge. She knew it was a forgery, but its existence was a blow. Lauren leaned over, whispering, "Don't worry, we've got this." She pulled out a laptop, her fingers flying as she accessed a digital timestamp analysis. "Your Honor," Lauren said, standing, "this lease was digitally altered after Ms. Jenkins's original agreement. The metadata proves it." The courtroom gasped, and Victor's smirk vanished. Judge Carver's eyes bored into him, her voice icy. "Mr. Grayson, falsifying evidence is a serious offense. Explain this discrepancy." Victor stammered, his composure crumbling. Amara felt a surge of triumph. But she knew Victor wouldn't go down without a fight. The battle was heating up. As Victor struggled to respond, Lauren dropped a bombshell. Your Honor, we've uncovered evidence that Mr. Grayson personally oversaw Sterling's predatory rent hikes. She presented an email chain linking Victor to the scheme, his instructions explicit: push out the low-income tenants. The gallery erupted, and Judge Carver banged her gavel for order. Victor's face turned crimson, his voice rising. This is slander. Those emails are fabricated. But his protests sounded hollow, and the judge's stern gaze silenced him. Mr. Grayson, I'm ordering an immediate investigation into these claims. You will provide all relevant correspondence. Amara's heart soared. She'd exposed not just Sterling, but Victor himself. The courtroom buzzed with excitement, the spectators whispering furiously. Amara caught Lauren's eye, and they shared a nod of mutual respect. Victor's empire was cracking, but Amara knew he'd lash out. She braced herself, ready for his next move. This wasn't just about her home anymore. It was about dismantling a system of injustice. During the next recess, Victor cornered Amara and Lauren in the hallway, his eyes blazing. "You think you've won," he hissed. "I have connections you can't imagine. This case will bury you both." His voice was low, menacing, but Amara stood her ground, her voice steady. "Your connections won't save you from the truth, Mr. Grayson." Lauren stepped forward, unfazed. "Threatening us in a courthouse? Bold move, Victor. We've already sent your emails to the state bar." His eyes widened, and for the first time, Amara saw fear in his expression. He stormed off, but his threat lingered, a dark cloud over their victory. Amara knew this wasn't over. Victor was too powerful to fold easily. Back in the courtroom, Amara felt the weight of the moment. The gallery was alive with anticipation, their support palpable. She wasn't alone anymore. Lauren, the housing advocates, even the spectators were with her. But Victor's connections were real, and Amara braced for a storm. She'd silenced the room once, but could she keep it that way? Judge Carver reconvened the court, her expression grave. "Given the evidence presented, I'm inclined to rule in Ms. Jenkins' favor, pending further investigation," she said. "Mr. Grayson, you and Sterling Properties are under scrutiny for potential fraud. I suggest you prepare accordingly." The gallery cheered, and Victor's face contorted with rage. Amara's heart pounded with relief, but she knew better than to celebrate. Victor's glare promised retribution, and his whispered threat echoed in her mind. Lauren squeezed her hand, whispering, "We've got your back." Amara nodded, grateful but wary. The judge's ruling was a victory, but Victor's connections could turn it bittersweet. As the court adjourned, Amara gathered her documents, her mind racing. Caleb was waiting at home, his faith in her unwavering. She'd fought for him, for their home, and now for justice itself. But Victor's power loomed large, and she knew he'd strike back. The adventure was far from over. That evening, Amara sat with Caleb in their small apartment, explaining the day's events. His eyes lit up, his voice bubbling with pride. "You beat the bad guy, Mom." She smiled, ruffling his hair, but her mind was elsewhere. Victor's threat weighed heavily, and she wondered what he'd do next. A knock at the door startled her, Lauren holding a stack of papers. "I've got news," Lauren said, her face serious. "Victor's firm is countersuing, claiming defamation. They're coming for you personally." Amara's stomach dropped, but Lauren's next words sparked hope. "We've got a team ready to fight this. The housing coalition is all in." Amara nodded, her resolve steeling. She'd faced worse odds and won. Caleb hugged her, his small arms grounding her. "You're unstoppable, Mom." Amara kissed his forehead, her heart swelling. Victor could throw his worst at her. She was ready. This wasn't just about her anymore. It was about every tenant, every voice silenced by power. She'd fight to the end. The next morning, Amara woke to a flood of notifications. Her case had gone viral. Social media buzzed with hashtag Justice for Amara, clips of her courtroom stand trending. Strangers praised her courage, sharing stories of their own battles with predatory landlords. But there were also trolls, fueled by Victor's allies, accusing her of fraud. Lauren arrived with a plan. "We're holding a press conference," she said. "Tell your story. Let the world see who you are." Amara hesitated. She wasn't used to the spotlight. But Caleb's proud grin pushed her forward. "Do it, Mom. Show him you're a hero." She hugged him, her fear giving way to determination. At the press conference, Amara stood before a sea of cameras, her voice steady. "I'm fighting for my son, for my home, for everyone who's been pushed out by greed." The crowd cheered, and Lauren handed her a mic to answer questions. As she spoke, Amara felt a shift. She wasn't just a defendant. She was a leader, a voice for the voiceless. Victor didn't waste time. That afternoon, his firm released a statement accusing Amara of forging evidence, backed by a polished video of him denying the allegations. "Ms. Jenkins is exploiting the system for attention," he said, his smile smug. The statement gained traction, and some media outlets ran with it, casting doubt on Amara's case. Lauren gathered the coalition, their faces grim. "Victor's got friends in high places," she said. "But we've got the truth." She revealed a new piece of evidence, a whistleblower from Sterling Properties, a former employee named Jamal, who'd kept records of Victor's orders to target tenants. "This could bury him," Lauren said, but Amara sensed danger. Victor wouldn't let this slide. Amara's phone buzzed with an anonymous text, "Back off, or you'll regret it." Her blood ran cold, but she forwarded it to Lauren, who promised to trace it. The stakes were rising, and Amara felt the weight of Victor's power. But she'd silenced the courtroom once. She could do it again. Jamal met Amara and Lauren at a quiet cafe, his hands shaking as he handed over a USB drive. "This has everything," he said, his voice low. "Emails, memos, even recordings of Victor planning the evictions." Amara's heart raced. This was the smoking gun they needed. But Jamal's fear was palpable. "He'll come for me," he whispered. Lauren assured him, "We'll protect you." "You're not alone." Amara nodded, her own fear mingling with gratitude. Jamal's courage mirrored her own, a reminder of the stakes. They spent hours reviewing the files, each one damning. Victor's voice, cold and calculating, ordering problem tenants removed. As they left the cafe, Amara noticed a black SUV idling nearby, its windows tinted. Her pulse quickened. Victor's reach was long, and she felt his shadow closing in. Lauren squeezed her arm. "We're stronger than him, Amara. Keep going." Amara nodded, her resolve hardening. This evidence could end Victor's reign, but it came with a price. That night, Amara's apartment was broken into. The intruders left no trace, but her legal files were scattered, her laptop missing. She called Lauren, her voice trembling as she described the scene. "It's Victor," she said, her fear turning to anger. Caleb clung to her, his eyes wide. "Are we safe, Mom?" She hugged him tightly, vowing to protect him. Lauren arrived with a security expert who swept the apartment for bugs. "They're trying to scare you," Lauren said, her face grim. "But we've got backups of everything." She handed Amara a new laptop with the whistleblower's files restored. "We're taking this to the state attorney tomorrow." Amara nodded, her heart pounding. This was war now. As Caleb slept, Amara sat up, watching the street below. The SUV was gone, but the threat lingered. She thought of her mother, who'd taught her to fight for what's right, no matter the cost. Amara wasn't backing down. She'd face Victor's wrath and come out stronger. The next morning, Amara and Lauren met with the state attorney, a no-nonsense woman named Carla Ruiz. They presented Jamal's evidence, and Carla's eyes widened as she listened to the recordings. "This is explosive," she said. "Grayson could face criminal charges, fraud, conspiracy, maybe more." Amara felt a surge of hope, but Carla's next words tempered it. "He's got powerful allies. We need airtight proof." Lauren handed over the forensic analysis, tying Victor's emails to the forged lease. "It's all here," she said, "and we have witnesses." Carla nodded, her expression resolute. "I'll open an investigation, but stay vigilant. Grayson's not above dirty tactics." Amara's stomach churned. She knew Victor's break-in was just the start. As they left the attorney's office, Amara's phone buzzed with another anonymous text. "You can't hide." She showed it to Lauren, who cursed under her breath. "We're getting you security," she said. Amara nodded, her fear giving way to defiance. Victor wanted to intimidate her, but she was ready to fight fire with fire. The Housing Coalition organized a rally outside the courthouse, drawing hundreds of supporters. Amara stood on a makeshift stage, her voice amplified by a megaphone. "This isn't just my fight," she said, her words echoing through the crowd. "It's for every tenant pushed out, every voice silenced. We're taking our power back." The crowd roared, their signs reading #Justice for Amara. Lauren joined her, announcing the state attorney's investigation. "Victor Grayson's days of bullying are over," she said, and the cheers grew louder. Amara felt a rush of pride, but her eyes scanned the crowd, wary of Victor's allies. She spotted a man in a hoodie taking photos, his face obscured. Her heart skipped. Was he one of Victor's? As the rally ended, Amara and Lauren met with supporters, their stories of eviction mirroring her own. A young man named Ty shared how Sterling had forced his family out, his voice breaking. Amara hugged him, her resolve strengthening. This was bigger than her. She was fighting for them all, and she wouldn't stop. That evening, Lauren received a tip. Victor was meeting with a private investigator at a downtown bar. "He's digging into you," Lauren said, her voice tense. "We need to know what he's planning." Amara's heart raced, but she saw an opportunity. "Let's crash it," she said, her eyes blazing. Lauren hesitated, then nodded. "You're crazy, but I'm in." They arrived at the dimly lit bar, blending into the crowd. Victor sat in a corner booth, his face grim as he spoke to a burly man with a notepad. Amara strained to hear, catching fragments. "Find dirt on Jenkins. Anything to discredit her." Her blood boiled, but Lauren held her back, whispering, "We need proof, not a scene." Amara nodded, slipping her phone from her pocket. She recorded Victor's conversation, capturing his orders to fabricate evidence against her. The investigator nodded, unaware of her presence. As they left, Amara's hands shook with adrenaline. This was the evidence they needed, but it came with a risk. Victor was closing in, and she was in his crosshairs. Amara and Lauren sent the recording to Carla, who promised swift action. "This could seal his fate," she said, but warned, "He's desperate now. Stay safe." Amara moved Caleb to a friend's house, her heart heavy with worry. She hated uprooting him, but Victor's threats were too real. She wouldn't take chances with her son's safety. The next day, Victor requested an emergency hearing, claiming new evidence to dismiss Amara's case. In court, he presented a doctored video of Amara allegedly threatening a Sterling employee. The gallery gasped, and Amara's heart sank. "That's fake," she cried, but Victor's smirk returned. "The evidence speaks for itself, Your Honor." Lauren stood, her voice steady. "Your Honor, we have proof of Mr. Grayson's tampering." She played Amara's recording from the bar, Victor's voice clear. "Make it look real." The courtroom erupted, and Judge Carver's gavel slammed. "Mr. Grayson, you're in contempt. This court will not tolerate fraud." Amara's eyes met Lauren's, a shared triumph amid the chaos. Judge Carver ordered Victor detained pending a fraud investigation, and the gallery cheered wildly. Amara's heart soared, but she knew Victor's connections could still pull strings. Lauren whispered, "We've got him on the ropes, but he's not out yet." Amara nodded, her mind racing. She'd silenced the room again, but the war wasn't won. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed, their cameras flashing. Amara spoke briefly, her voice strong. "This is about justice, not just for me, but for everyone Sterling tried to break." The crowd applauded, and Caleb ran to her, his arms wrapping around her waist. "You're my hero, Mom," he said, and Amara's eyes glistened. As they drove away, Amara noticed a black SUV trailing them. Her pulse quickened, but Lauren's security team was ready, escorting them safely home. Victor was down, but not out, and Amara knew he'd strike again. She was ready for anything. He'd underestimated her for the last time. Jamal's evidence became the cornerstone of the state's case against Victor. He testified in a closed hearing, his voice shaking but resolute. "Grayson told us to target black and low-income tenants," he said, presenting more recordings. Amara watched, her heart swelling with gratitude. Jamal's bravery had turned the tide, but it came at a cost. He'd received threats, too. Lauren arranged protection for Jamal, and the coalition rallied around him, just as they had for Amara. Social media exploded with support. Hashtag Justice for Jamal, trending alongside hashtag Justice for Amara. The public's outrage pressured Sterling's investors, who began pulling out, sensing the company's collapse. Amara visited Jamal, thanking him personally. "You didn't have to do this," she said, her voice thick with emotion. Jamal smiled, his eyes tired but proud. "Someone had to stand up. You showed me how." Amara hugged him, their shared fight forging a bond stronger than steel. Victor's empire was crumbling, and they were the ones breaking it. Victor, out on bail, launched a final gambit, a smear campaign accusing Amara and Jamal of conspiracy. He flooded the media with doctored photos and false testimonies, painting them as extortionists. Some outlets ran the stories, and Amara's heart sank as doubt crept into the public's perception. "He's fighting dirty," Lauren said, her voice grim. Amara refused to back down. She went live on social media, Caleb by her side, sharing her story. "Victor Grayson thinks he can silence us with lies," she said, her voice fierce. "But the truth is louder." She played Jamal's recordings, and the video went viral, amassing millions of views. The public's support surged, drowning out Victor's lies. Lauren traced the doctored photos to a private investigator linked to Victor, and Carla filed additional charges. Amara felt a flicker of hope, but the SUV outside her apartment reappeared, its presence a chilling reminder of Victor's reach. She tightened her grip on Caleb, ready to face whatever came next. The final hearing was a media circus, the courthouse packed with supporters and reporters. Amara stood tall, Lauren and Jamal by her side, as Judge Carver reviewed the accumulated evidence. Victor's team presented more forged documents, but Carla dismantled them with the whistleblower's recordings and Amara's bar footage. "Your Honor," Amara said, her voice ringing clear, "Victor Grayson built his career on crushing people like me, but I'm still standing and I'm not alone." She gestured to the gallery where hundreds chanted her name. Victor's face was a mask of fury, his empire in tat AAPL system. TERS. Judge Carver's gavel silenced the room, her voice resolute. "Mr. Grayson, the evidence against you is overwhelming. This court finds in favor of Ms. Jenkins. Your actions German law and you're facing serious consequences. Victor's shoulders slumped, his smug demeanor shattered. This is an outrage, he spat. But the judge's ruling was final. Sterling Properties and Victor Grayson are ordered to pay Ms. Jenkins's legal fees and damages. The gallery erupted in cheers, and Amara's eyes filled with tears of relief. She'd won, not just for herself, but for everyone Victor had wronged. Outside the courthouse, Amara was mobbed by supporters, their signs waving in the Atlanta heat. "You did it!" Ty shouted, hugging her tightly. Jamal joined them, his face beaming with pride. "We did it," he corrected, and Amara laughed, her heart full. The viral support online amplified their victory, with hashtag #JusticeForAmara trending globally. Lauren organized a community celebration at a local park, where Amara shared her story with tenants who'd faced similar evictions. "This is your win, too," she told them, her voice trembling with emotion. Caleb stood beside her, holding her hand, his eyes shining with admiration. The event was a testament to their collective strength, a beacon of hope for the future. As they celebrated, Amara noticed a news alert on her phone. Victor's law license was under review, and Sterling Properties faced federal charges. The tide had turned, but Amara knew Victor's allies might still retaliate. She hugged Caleb, ready for any challenge. This was her victory, and she'd earned every moment of it. Lauren called Amara that evening with news. "Victor's been disbarred. The state bar acted faster than we expected." Amara's breath caught, her eyes welling with tears. She'd silenced the courtroom, exposed a predator, and now his career was over. But Lauren's voice held a warning. "His connections are still out there. Stay sharp." Amara nodded, her resolve unshaken. She'd faced Victor's worst and come out stronger, with a community behind her. She thanked Lauren, who'd become more than an ally, a friend. "We're a team now," Lauren said, and Amara smiled, knowing she wasn't alone anymore. At home, Caleb drew a picture of Amara as a superhero, cape and all. "This is you, Mom," he said, and she laughed, pulling him close. The fight had been brutal, but it had forged her into something unstoppable, a leader, a voice, a force for justice. The fallout from the case reshaped Atlanta's housing landscape. Sterling Properties was sold to a community-focused developer who pledged to honor fair rent policies. Amara's story inspired tenant unions across the state, with Justice for Amara becoming a rallying cry. She spoke at rallies, her voice growing stronger, her presence commanding. Jamal received a bravery award from the coalition, his testimony a turning point in the case. He and Amara stayed in touch, their bond a reminder of the power of standing together. Lauren launched a statewide initiative to protect tenants, with Amara as its ambassador, her story a beacon of hope. Amara's apartment was safe, her son's laughter filling the space. She framed Caleb's superhero drawing, a symbol of their journey. The threats had stopped, but she remained vigilant, knowing justice was a marathon, not a sprint. She was ready to run it. Months later, Amara stood before a crowd at a national housing conference, her story now a movement. "We're not just fighting for homes," she said, her voice echoing through the auditorium. "We're fighting for dignity, for fairness, for each other." The crowd rose, their applause deafening, their signs a sea of solidarity. Caleb, now 9, sat in the front row, his eyes bright with pride. Lauren and Jamal flanked her, their support unwavering. The viral hashtags had evolved into a non-profit. Justice Rising, with Amara at its helm, advocating for tenant rights nationwide. As she looked out at the crowd, Amara felt her mother's strength in her, her son's faith beside her. Victor's mockery had silenced the room, but her voice had changed the world. This was her legacy, a fight for justice, a home for her son, a future where everyone belonged.